Welcome back to the channel and welcome to day 2 of our 8-episode Car Care Tech Week extravaganza. Today we're going to discuss some tips and tricks for getting your car or cars cleaned and protected inside and out.
Yeah, I have to say I'm kind of fired up about this topic. If it's one thing that has slipped since being a dad, it has been, giving my car a thorough wash and cleaning, and in this case, a protective coating or a waxing. I really haven't done that with my vehicles. So, yeah, maybe now that I'm a fresh empty nester, this is something that can change.
Yeah, compared to our high school days, I'm sure both of us have really fallen off in that area.
Yeah, so I have to ask, after all these years, why the sudden interest or re-interest in car care?
I wouldn't call it all of a sudden. I mean, that interest has always been there, but because of, work and kids and those kinds of factors, I just didn't have the time to invest. And now with things, maybe slowing down just a little bit on the kid front, and the fact that, technology, like it has in many areas, has spilled into this space, I think that kind of helped rejuvenate my interest, and quite honestly, that technology even helps us do some of these things faster. So I think that's where it all started.
Yeah, well, that is definitely true. I mean, from the soaps and the cleaners and the protectants and as well as the equipment that's available to hairy homeowner, you can really see how technology has changed things.
Another consideration for me is the fact that I've been keeping cars longer than I used to, and I don't know, I just can't get over having my cars look old. I don't want that. And so, I've decided that really the only choice I have to have them not look quite as old is to do a better job of taking care of the paint and the other aspects of the car's appearance. And so this is one of those things that I can do to keep the car looking better longer.
Yeah, that's a great point. Cars are much more expensive than they were 20 years ago. And in my case, I have a Camaro that's 11 years old, but it's been my daily driver, and I kind of admitted I haven't been taking care of it. So it might be too late for my Camaro. We'll see. But, any of this technology that can help me, keep a paint job protected and well preserved with much less effort, I'm all in. Maybe my next vehicle can benefit from all of this.
For sure, Keith. I mean, that's the exact motivation for this series of episodes, right? So we're not really trying to turn our viewers into professional detailers. I mean, we're not professional detailers ourselves. What we really want to do is really, create an opportunity to learn some things about how that process looks, and how to leverage technology and some of the things that we're going to show to, reduce the time and effort that it takes to get some great results. And that's really, the motivation that we have here. And hopefully along the way, we can cover a variety of options for the various budgets that people have.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Doing it yourself can sound like a huge money saver, and I guess it can be, but only if you do it right. Okay, so we're going to cover a lot of the budget options, as well as kind of the middle ground and super premium options that are available to you for some of these car care products, as well as we'll cover some periodic maintenance items, and then we'll talk about some of the don't do's, like these so-called soft cloth car washes.
Exactly. Every time I hear the word soft cloth, I just cringe, right? Because I don't know, to me, I just can't imagine, any level of water filtration and cleaning and all of that is going to remove the contaminants and dirts and things like that from the previous vehicles that have gone through that wash, and therefore that ultimately is going to end up rubbing against your paint. So that just makes me cringe. It's a lot like the, fingernails on the chalkboard.
Okay, so how about we jump into some of the steps here and talk about some of the choices that we have. For example, a pressure washer versus, a garden hose and a couple of buckets.
Sounds like a great plan. So what I'm going to do is put up a graphic that's going to show, the various steps as well as the options that we have for the various budgets where available. And that'll allow you to utilize, some things maybe that you have around the house already. And then also, where applicable, maybe purchase some things that you don't have that, you want to invest in that particular item because, you don't have anything else that's going to accomplish that around the house, or you don't want to use the low budget items. So we're going to give you a chance to pick and choose there. And so one thing that you're going to hear us say on pretty much most of the steps is you really don't want to be washing your car, polishing, waxing, putting on sealants, protectants, any of those types of things in direct sunlight. So we're going to continue to remind you about that, because this is an important aspect of doing the job right, and we want to make sure that we're pointing in the direction of getting some good results, doing it right, and then showing you some various budget items based on what you want to invest in this process. So step one, the pre-cleaning. The idea here is to remove as much loose dirt and debris from the surface of the paint and the wheels as possible without touching the paint surface.
So for your best option, we're talking about a foam cannon and pressure washer. The idea is to put a layer of foaming soap on the surface of the paint and let it dwell there a little bit to remove that initial layer of dirt.
So a good option, but not quite the foam cannon and pressure washer, is to get a foam gun, right, versus a foam cannon, and use your garden hose. The foam's not going to be as thick as the foam cannon, as you'll see, and it won't stay on the surface of the paint as long, nor will it remove as much of the initial debris.
Another good option is a pump-activated soap dispenser for spraying a soaping foam onto the paint. Now, this will actually be a pretty thick foam layer onto the paint, so that's good. But you'll be pumping the air into the container on a regular basis, manually. So unless you can figure out a way to put a shake weight onto this thing, it's going to double as a pretty intense workout program.
For an okay method, you can spray your car down with the garden hose or use the pressure washer without soap. So you're only going to remove a minimal amount of the initial dirt, more if you use a pressure washer versus the hose, but still less than if you apply that soap product on the surface and let it dwell for several minutes.
And as a note, we will show more details on the foam cannons and options here in the 4th episode of our Car Care Tech Week. Now we'll cover step 2, the wash. Now the wash phase begins after the rinse from whatever method you used in step 1, right? Here we will use soap either from another spray-on method or from a wash bucket.
So for our best method here, you're going to repeat the soap spray method you used from step 1. Now, you may use a different product, right? So they do make pre-washes. So if you used a pre-wash, that's fine. Here we're going to use an actual soap product. Now you're going to spray that soap on. You're going to let it dwell for several minutes. And now, instead of just directly rinsing it, we're going to use a microfiber wash mitt or sponge to clean any remaining dirt from the paint surface. We will use a single wash bucket with rinse water, and we have a dirt trapper at the bottom of the bucket to keep that separated from the clean rinse water as much as possible. If needed, you can empty the rinse bucket occasionally if the car was particularly dirty. Rinse the car thoroughly once you have completed all of your washing of the car.
So for a good option, use 2 buckets. One will be filled with the soapy water. This is how you will get soap onto the car. Dip your clean microfiber sponge or mitt into the soapy water and spread the soap around on your car and gently clean the surface. You will want to frequently dip your mitt or sponge into the rinse water bucket, then back into the soapy water.
All right, so we're going to label this next option as bad, meaning if you get bad results, we warned you were going to get bad results. So we're just going to use a single bucket with soap. And to be honest, this is the method that Keith and I probably used back in the day. The reason this is bad is because you're bringing the dirty sponge into the bucket and wringing it. All the dirt will eventually be difficult to avoid as you wash your vehicle. The dirtier the car, the worse this method is going to be.
Important note, if you have a high quality graphene or ceramic coating on your car, and if you don't know what that is, then you don't, but you may be able to skip the sponge altogether for that touchless wash, especially if you're using a power washer.
Step 3, it's going to be to take care of those wheels. So depending on the product that you use for your wheels, this may be something that you do prior to the rest of the wash or possibly at the same time. Some products you would spray on would want a wet wheel, others are going to want it dry.
So what's the best option? Use a spray-on and dwell solution safe for your type of wheels. Following the directions for dwell time, rinse the wheels. They make wheel brushes and other cleaning products safe to use on wheels as well. If you can, like the ideal car wash, keep your process no touch. But this may require a previous thorough wash where you applied a protectant to the wheels.
So a good way to clean your wheels is going to be use the soaping process from the car wash or wheel product from above, coupled with a delicate wash mitt or sponge. Do not use the mitt or sponge that you use with the rest of your car, okay? So the mitt or sponge you're using on the paint. You'll find that wheels in the lower part of your car tends to have more abrasive substances stuck on them, so avoid sharing that sponge that you use for the paint with the wheels.
And what's the bad option? Well, Bruce kind of alluded to it, and that is using the same sponge or mitt and wash bucket for the wheels as you did for the paint. There is a good chance of getting dirt and debris on your sponge for the wheels, and if you put it on your car for the paint, you're going to scratch the car. So if you're going to use a sponge or a mitt for the wheels, just leave it for the wheels. Now we're on to step 4, the dry. There are several schools of thought here. If possible, drying the car without touching it will be ideal.
All right, our best method for drying is to use a blower, either one designed for automotive work or a home lawn and leaf blower. By using a blower, you can avoid touching the surface of your paint. The dedicated automotive blowers can be quite expensive, however, so you can use your lawn and leaf blower if the CFM is high enough. The CFM is different than the velocity of the air. So CFM is more of a measure of the volume, and it's literally called the cubic feet per minute. To be effective, 300 CFM should be the minimum, and 500 CFM or better is going to be ideal.
Okay, let's cover a good option. Air drying can be a great method, but you really can't control the timing of how long the drying process will take. Without treated water, however, this could be a very bad process. I call this good, but don't really recommend it because it has variables that are kind of out of your control.
So another good method is going to be a good microfiber drying cloth, and it's still a great way of drying your vehicle. It is important to make sure that you've gotten your car completely clean so that you can minimize the transfer of any materials that could be embedded in the cloth and then ultimately end up scratching your paint.
And finally, for an okay method, Bruce and I are kind of old school, so this is sort of what we did, and that is to use chamois. Natural chamois, as well as eventually now an artificial chamois, like a ShamWow. You don't see people use these as much anymore, but you can still buy them. You must make sure that you get the chamois thoroughly wet to lubricate it first, and then squeeze out the excess water so you can minimize the chance of scratching the paint.
All right, we've made it to step 5, and now we're going to be polishing and doing our paint correction. So polishing and paint correction is where you really show off the work that you've done in the area of cleaning your car. Now, we're not going to go into wet sanding or any really abrasive compounds to address major paint issues. We're going to focus on the slight surface scratches, imperfections, and those dreaded swirl marks.
Yeah, and I think this is going to be important for my Camaro. So the best method here is using a corded or a cordless orbital polisher. It's going to give you some great results if you use them correctly. You will need to assess the condition of your paint ahead of time, to determine if you can use a simple polish or a compound followed by a polish. You may even need to clay bar your car to remove built-up contaminants on your paint that the orbital polisher will simply use to scratch your paint even further.
So let's discuss the good news. You still have a good method available to you. If you don't want to spring for the expense, you can still use the exact process as the best method just by hand. So this is going to be more time consuming and physically demanding. You'll be amazed how tired your hands will get applying and removing compounds and polishes manually. But you still assess the paint condition and use the clay bar or compounds as needed and then polish.
And lastly, for an okay option, you can basically just skip this step and go directly to step 6, which is protection, for a little foreshadowing there. But if you skip and go directly to this wax or protectant layer, you're only going to be able to fill in the very lightest of surface imperfections. If your car is in really great shape to begin with, or if you're just okay with that, you can just skip this step and go directly to protection.
So note, we're going to have a ton of detail in our polisher review, which is part 6 of our Car Care Tech Week. So if you can hold on that long, you're going to get some great detail on this.
All right, part 6, step 6 now. Step 6 is protection. Protection is the phase where you keep all of your hard work from going to waste. Protection does exactly what it sounds like it's going to do. But what does that actually mean? A good protective layer will help prevent environmental factors, which is a fancy way of saying dirt and bird droppings and stuff from trees, from damaging your paint. It also allows you to clean your car by helping water rinse those contaminants from your paint more easily the next time around. A good protection layer can facilitate a good touchless car wash process. Ceramic and graphene coatings range in price from $25 a bottle to $100 a bottle, and waxes can be far less expensive.
So let's talk about the best method. Now, we're going to focus on DIY products, right, or do-it-yourself, not professional, only graphene or ceramic coatings. Specifically, we're going to use a spray-on ceramic coating. This isn't necessarily the best. There's lots of them out there that are good. I would recommend a spring and fall schedule, although many coatings claim a year or more of longevity. Most products call for a hand application, so the power tools get a rest here.
And what's a good method? Well, a liquid wax can get you anywhere from a few weeks to months of protection, but results will vary widely. There's a lot of different kinds of waxes out there. When I was still using a wax product, typically I would wax the vehicle every month or every 4 washes. This was like in high school days.
All right, so we promised you lots of warnings about using these cleaning and protective products in direct sunlight. So this is another one. So don't apply your protective coating in direct sunlight. Most products will not buff out well if you do so. We're up to step 7, our interior cleaning. Now, for me, this is usually a if I have time item. Mostly because I have spent so much time on the previous steps that I either have run out of daylight, time available, or the energy to do so. But if you can work it into your cleaning process, do. Not much worse than stepping into a filthy interior after you pass the shiny car on the way in.
So what's your best option? Now, if you have carpet stains or even leather or fabric stains, well, you've got a long road ahead. First, you got to remove all the loose trash and debris. Using your shop vac or a home vac with a hose attachment or a dedicated car vac, just thoroughly vacuum the floors, the seats, and between the seats and the armrests, cup holders, everything. Anything loose, you're going to want to vacuum that up versus wiping it up. Now, using car brushes and terry cloth towels, clean up your cup holders and other hard-to-reach areas using a product designed for car interiors. We have a recommended product linked below. Next, use a spray carpet cleaner or Bissell, for example, or other kind of spot cleaner on the carpets and cloth seats. Now, be sure to test any of these cleaning products first on a kind of a hard-to-see spot to make sure it's color fast and make sure it doesn't do anything weird. And then finally, apply a protectant to the interior of the car and leather conditioner to any leather surfaces.
So an okay method would be to collect the trash, vacuum, wipe the interior and hard surfaces with a cleaner protectant, use a leather cleaner or protectant on your seats if you have leather seats, otherwise just vacuum, and call it a day.
As a note, we're going to have tons of details in the 5th installment of this series on exactly this topic. Step 8. Can you believe there's 8 steps so far? Finishing touches. So here we're going to dress the tires so that they really shine, along with bringing back any dull or faded trim. We'll also get that glass clean.
Since this is such a big step, right, finishing touches, we've broken it up into several sub-steps. So first, let's talk about tire dressing. How can you resist that glossy, almost wet tire look? Dressing your tires really helps finish that pro-detailed car look. It's super easy, and there are a number of ways to accomplish it. There are a ton of tire dressing products that do a great job, and I assure you, you can find one that fits pretty much any budget.
So what's your best option? Well, spray a tire dressing sponge with the dressing of choice. Apply the dressing to the tires until completely covered. Now, I say completely, but be careful how much of the tread you get versus just the sidewall of the tires. And also, use care around the wheels themselves. Any application to the wheel should be wiped up.
So a good, still effective method is to spray the dressing onto a towel and wipe around the wheel. Now this can be microfiber, it can be terry cloth, whatever you choose. This is going to work fine, possibly as well as the sponge, but you're likely to get the product onto your hands, and it may be more difficult to get even coverage.
And just an okay method is spraying the tire dressing directly onto the tires. I did this for years. In fact, this is kind of what I'm still doing, if I'm being honest now. The downside to this method is you're also spraying the wheels and the pavement. It's almost inevitable. So if you don't mind having your soul glow, so to speak, this is okay.
So as a reminder, we'll have a ton of details about this topic and all of the finishing touches in the 8th installment of this series.
So continuing on with finishing touches, glass cleaning. So to get the best results, we recommend cleaning your glass inside and out. You don't want to invest all the time making the paint look its best and having the glass stick out in a bad way.
So going with the best here, if your glass hasn't been cleaned thoroughly in a long time, or ever, start with a clay solution to remove the contaminants first. Then I have a recommended glass cleaning product that we'll demonstrate using. There's a lot of other good products out there, so this isn't the only one, it's just the one that I've chosen to use. Now what we're going to do is use a microfiber cloth to apply and wipe off. Do not use paper towels to clean your glass. They'll leave streaks or tiny paper particles on your glass. You can also get a specialized inside glass tool for getting those corners of your windshield. It isn't expensive, but it will make a huge difference.
So what's a good option? Well, you can use a good old-fashioned home glass cleaner, but one without ammonia or vinegar. You don't want to put ammonia or vinegar on your glass, especially on the interior glass if you have tinted windows. Again, avoid using paper towels also. If you don't want to purchase microfiber cloths for some reason, you can use good old-fashioned terry cloth towels, but make sure they are lint-free.
So I've got an okay to good option for you. Some polishes can actually be used on your glass, your exterior glass. I mentioned liquid glass in the first part of the series from back in the day. We're not going to cover this, but it is an option, but it will require that you do a little experimenting.
Note, don't clean your glass in direct sunlight and make sure your glass is kind of cool to the touch before you get started. We're going to have a ton of details on this in the 8th installment of this series.
So our third step of step 8, or letter C if you're following along at home, is going to be the trim renewal. So faded trim is a sure way to ruin a beautiful car detailing job that you've just spent hours doing. So along with restoring the color, we're also going to want to use a product that is going to protect the trim and slow the process of fading going forward.
So your best option, spray a quality trim restorer or protectant product onto the trim or applicator, it depends on the product, and work that into the trim following the instructions. Pick a product that fits your budget and pay attention to the reviews to get the right product for you.
So for a good option, we're going to say stick with the best. Cleaning alone is unlikely to do the job, and since that is the case, you'll want a product specifically for your car's trim.
And as a side note, we'll have a ton of details on this in the 8th installment of this series on this exact topic. Wow, I mean, I was kind of unprepared for having so many steps. This is something. By the way, if you're here still, please like the episode with the little thumbs up button, follow the channel, that really helps us. Ring the bell, hit that bell button, do all that stuff. So yeah, at least 8 steps, if maybe 11, depending on how you're counting. It's incredible. Is it just me, or was there a lot more than when we were in high school?
Keith, I think you're probably right on here. I think there probably are more steps than there were. I think in the 35 plus years since we were in high school, there have been far more products that are specific to the cleaning, polishing, and protecting of your automobile today.
Yeah, thanks for confirming that I'm not crazy here. It seems like a lot of these products or these technologies didn't exist when we were in high school. I could be wrong. I mean, I don't think I ever heard of a foam cannon back when we were in high school. Now, maybe they did exist and we just didn't know about it because we were kind of young and dumb and naive. We didn't really have the internet back then.
So true, Keith. So I've been watching, I don't know, probably dozens of videos on the, modern detailing process and tools and chemicals that are available. And it's been a huge help in getting myself reacquainted with the technology that's available. And we didn't have YouTube, back then in order to learn about these things and educate ourselves on what, best practices would be in use today.
All right. That's it. I think we have packed as much learning as humanly possible into one episode. My brain is full. Nessa is completely unconscious at this point.
Okay, yeah. I think we've presented a ton of information. So just as a reminder, we still have 6 more episodes where we're going to deep dive into more of the techniques, more of the tips, and some of those products that we've mentioned and illustrated being used in those additional 6 episodes.
So trust me when I say you're not going to want to miss any of it. Now we're going to cover the Greenworks Power Washer. That video is up next. And we're also going to cover the MJJC foam cannon. You're not going to want to miss that one either.
Not to mention that we're going to have a deep dive into deep cleaning your car interior in installment number 5. We're even going to cover odor removal.
Oh, good. That's good. I think I have some of this this issue. By the way, just a tip: don't feed a teenager spicy food and then get in a long car ride with them. And don't do that with your dog either.
Ooh, gosh. Had I known you had that issue, we could have maybe put the interior cleaning along with the odor removal a little earlier in the series. So, my apologies, Keith. But stick around, and we're going to have the interior car cleaning episode, and then following the interior car cleaning episode on episode 5, we're going to put a shine on your car with our polisher review and some tips on how to use it.
Yeah, and let's not forget about the car wash accessories episode. That's going to be the second to last episode in the series, and we're going to cover, all of the chemicals that we've talked about in previous episodes, as well as some of the tools that we haven't covered yet. It'll be a good episode. You're going to get a sense of, what we like to use.
Lastly, we're going to put the finishing touches on your finishing touches. So, dressing the tires, cleaning your glass like a pro, and making that trim look new again.
Hey, you had me at finishing touches on the finishing touches. That was brilliant. And if you've learned something today, and let's be honest, how could you have not learned something? Right, Nessa? Wake up. See? She's awake. And why don't you wake up and hit the like button? Because you did learn something.
As well, if you haven't subscribed, why don't you help us out on that front? I mean, let's face it, you're still here, and you've learned a lot. I mean, you have learned a lot. And there's more to learn. You don't want to miss any of the additional episodes we have on the Car Care Tech Week. So hit that subscribe button, hit that bell, so that you don't miss any of that important information we're going to cover.
Yeah, Bruce, I like that. You were like channeling your inner Jedi there. You have learned a lot. These aren't the droids you're looking for. Hey, and speaking of looking for us, find us on the next episode of Dad's Talk Tech. Nessa, you look so comfortable. Draw me like one of your French girls.